Good morning, admitted students. My name is Hopi Randall, and I am the Associate Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid here at the Divinity School. It is my delight this morning to welcome all of you to our virtual open house. I so wish we could host you physically. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood in New Haven, even prettier than it was yesterday. Alas, here we are. We hope that you will be able to get to this campus soon and very soon. Um, Congratulations on your acceptance to YDS. If you have read my welcome letter on our website, you would have seen that I said it's not an easy feat, not an easy accomplishment. And many of your colleagues are, some of the brightest and creative minds of our times. And so we hope that we will be able to see all of you on this campus in the fall. Again, welcome. We have a pretty full day for you with some flexibility uh, scheduled in there for you. So without further delay, I'm going to introduce or ask our Dean, Gregory Sterling, Dean of YDS, who will come and will greet you in his own way. And after he has shared, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. And we ask that you will put your questions in the Q&A box. And Dean Sterling will also remind you of that. So once again, welcome, welcome, welcome. Dean Sterling.
Thank you very much, Dean Randall. I will echo her very warm welcome to all of you. We're very pleased that you are considering Yale Divinity School. You're in a select group. Only 1 in 3 applicants were accepted this year. And it's already a select group before that happened. So congratulations to you. It's unfortunate that we have a pandemic for all kinds of reasons. But one of the results is that we have to do this remotely. And so you're not able to be here and see this beautiful campus. But we are planning to be here in person this fall. That is, classes will take place in person. Not every decision has been made about the density of classes, or maybe more particularly about large gatherings. So, but we're planning to have a full slate of our normal activities. We may start outside with Marquand Chapel initially, but we'll let the health conditions determine what we can and can't do. But I want you to know that we are planning to be here in person and hope that you will be joining us. I want to urge you, if you have an opportunity to get a vaccine, by all means get one, or if you get Moderna or Pfizer, get both of the shots. But be vaccinated, protect yourself. Let me just briefly tell you a little bit about the Divinity School from a 30,000 foot level, not quite 30,000 foot, but I'm going to share a few photos with you and just give you an idea of what we're about here at the Divinity School. So let me start by just showing you, some of you may not have been here before. So this is a shot of the quad, as we call it. Now, there have been some changes. These 2 back courtyard areas have all been renovated. This quad was built in 1932. It was modeled on the University of Virginia. Let me even back away a little bit more and give you a greater aerial view, not quite as beautiful, but you can see a little bit more. If you have ever been to the University of Virginia, you will recognize the design of this quad. The quad was designed by an architectural firm. One of the key architects was a Yale College alum, but they explicitly designed it based on the University of Virginia. In Mr. Jefferson's design, the library, which is a rotunda, stands at the center, and then you have these residential structures on the side. Here we have Marquand Chapel standing at the center. The drone shots you saw were around the steeple. What's not evident to you is that the main entrance to our library is directly beneath Marquand Chapel. And so I like to say that we have intellect on the ground floor and faith above it. We are a community that values intellectual achievement and celebrates and nurtures faith. We do that in a number of ways. We do it by focusing on a sense of community. So the community life that is built on this quad physically takes place in these three buildings primarily. That is Marquand Chapel, then the refectory, and the common room, as we call it. But these three areas can be very lively during the school year, and they should be lively again this fall. Initially, these were residences where students lived. The quad was renovated to go back to that earlier picture, at the very beginning of this millennium, and we finished it in 2017. So it has been very recently renovated. What wasn't renovated were the three apartment houses, and I'm going to come back and talk about these later. These were called married student housing, or as the students called them, the Fertile Crescent, because so many babies were born to people living in these apartments. We'll come back and talk about those in a minute, but that will give you at least a brief idea of what we're about. I'm going to spend a few minutes now talking about three major initiatives that are underway at the school that I think will be important to all of you. We have others that are also underway, and I will be very happy to answer any questions that you have. And at any time, you can start posing your questions by using the Q&A box. Just type in your questions and we'll answer those towards the end. But let me just talk about three things. The first, something that I think will be near to all of your hearts, financial aid. It's our number one priority in terms of fundraising. Secondly, diversity or anti-racist efforts, or I like to think of it positively as belonging. And finally, the living village. So let me say just a brief word about financial aid. You will be meeting with John Stachniewicz, the Director of Finance and Operations, and Doreen Generoso, the Director of Financial Aid, right after this, and they can answer a lot of your specific questions. But I wanted to give you the overview by stating our goal is by next fiscal year, that is fiscal year 23, so in July of next year, we will have a budget in which all students with demonstrated need will be tuition free. I can't make that as an absolute promise, but I'm pretty confident we're going to make it. So this is just a slide to show you the progress that we've made in the last 5 years for our standard aid package. And you can see how it's grown. And this is not just what we give incoming students, this is all students. So, for example, students who entered in the fall of 2019 and had the standard aid package received a $20,000 scholarship. This year, they had $22,500, and next year, if they're M.Div students, their senior year, they will have $25,000. So we've increased it across the board. You're probably wondering, what will we do when we reach our goal in fiscal year 23, which is July 22 to June 23? Then we plan to raise money for stipends to help students with living expenses. We know it's expensive to live here, and I'll come back and talk about that a little more in a minute. But I wanted just to tell you that we are fully committed to trying to support you as best we can. We don't want you to make future decisions based on how will I repay my student loans. We want you to make those decisions based on your sense of vocation and of call. So that's the first thing. The second major issue I'd like to touch on is what I call belonging, as I said, to put it positively. That is to say, we are trying to create an environment in which everybody feels that they belong here. That's a very challenging goal. We began with a strategic plan that included these elements, and we're in the process of revising that strategic plan. So I'm just going to tell you what we've done to date and give you an idea of where we're headed, and then you can ask questions if you'd like. But we wanted to expand our representation, so we tripled the number of faculty from underrepresented groups, doubled the number of staff, and doubled the number of students. We realized that we had to change our curriculum and to do things in the co-curricular venues. So we've made significant changes to our curriculum, and this year I charged the curriculum committee with reviewing the entire curriculum to make sure that every program has anti-racist programming in it. We try to make that permeate the entire curriculum. Co-curricular activities have been expanded. If you look at this list, let me just talk about the last two because they're what we've done this year. So in the fall, Lynn Sullivan, I'll introduce you to Lynn in just a minute, who's our director of equity and belonging here at YDS, led a webinar entitled Decentering Institutional Whiteness. There was a limit of 1,000 people for this webinar. Lynn not only had 1,000 people attend the webinar, but had to turn away another 1,000 people from the Yale community. This was university-wide. She did another one of these, which was of similar interest, not quite 2,000, but very, very broad interest this spring. We also devoted all of our faculty, staff, and included in the student retreats to anti-racist training, and we've had workshops all year. The faculty have been working through Willie Jennings' new book, After Whiteness, working through a chapter at a time with Professor Jennings. So I'm telling you that as a way of saying we take this very seriously. We also realized that students needed to see themselves on our walls. And so we commissioned a portrait of James Pennington. You see a picture of that portrait. It hangs in our common room. James Pennington was the first African-American to attend Yale University, not just the Divinity School, but Yale University. He attended in the 30s. After he attended, he became a very notable minister. The pulpit Bible that he used in a church at Hartford is now in the National Museum in Washington, D.C. That we also have a classroom named after him now. That's only one example, but we have tried to change our iconography to reflect the diversity. There's a photo of Lynn, who's the Director of Community Equity and Belonging. This year, I appointed a task force co-chaired by Professor Willie Jennings and Professor Laura Nasrallah, who are reworking our strategic plan and are in the process of finalizing their report, which I should receive within the next month or so. I'm looking forward to receiving that, and we'll make additional changes. The third major area that I want to talk about is the living village. Originally, students lived in all of these units, and some faculty lived in them as well. When the quad was renovated, they were all converted, as I said, to offices and classrooms, something that we desperately needed. But what that did was it took away some of the intimacy of the community that existed here for a very long time. So we want to replace our aging apartments built in 1957 with a 40-year life expectancy. You can do the math. With what I call the living village. We have three reasons for wanting to do this. First, we want to make an eco-theological statement. We want to lead Yale by example and to lead all of higher education by example, showing the way to build residential structures that are a foretaste of the future. We also want to restore this intimate sense of community, and we're doing this for financial aid reasons. We want to be able to offer places for students to live on campus that are more affordable, that will be roughly the same price that you might pay for a room in a large house in New Haven. So let me touch on these just very briefly. We call this the living village because the buildings have to meet the Living Building Challenge standards. So if you think of the way that buildings are constructed, the lowest acceptable level of a building would be at building code. That just means that the structures are safe structurally. But then all of you are aware of the movement towards green or sustainable buildings, and you may even know something about LEED certification. So many universities use LEED certification for standards on their campus. Yale uses LEED Gold as the standard for buildings. We want to exceed all of those standards because while these are noble and to be celebrated, they still have a negative environmental impact. The Living Building Challenge is intended to give something back to the environment, so it can be called regenerative. The image of the Living Building Challenge is a flower, and it's quite appropriate. A flower exists in one place. It has to receive all of its nourishment in that place. It can't relocate to get better sunshine or more rainfall. And when it dies, it gives something back to the soil from which it sprouted. That's the idea of the Living Building Challenge. So we want to do that. That means that all of these buildings will need to generate all of their own power. This will be done through solar. We'll also have geothermal wells. They need to capture and process all of their own water. We've done a feasibility study to make sure that we have enough rain and snowfall to be able to handle this. And they have to handle all of their own waste through a compostable toilet system. The plant for all of this will be located, at least prospectively, right here. This represents the full living village as it's envisioned for the future. But you can see that rather than having an apartment building here and another one here and another one here, we're trying to bring things back to the quad to reinstitute this sense of learning in community or learning and living in tandem, so that living and learning are not separated. You may live here, but you'll also learn here, and you may learn here, but you'll also live here. We want to bring them together. When this is built, it will be the world's largest academic living building challenge project. It will have the first Living Building Challenge chapels when we get it all finished. It's potentially the first Living Campus Challenge certified campus. And it will be, if we get started early enough, the first Living Building Challenge project in Connecticut. There's one that's going to start in Fairfield County, but it will be the first Ivy League Living Building Challenge project. So we think it will challenge the way that universities and colleges throughout all of North America and maybe the world will think about residential structures. So this is the whole plan. And we originally said, here's phase one, this is phase two. But we don't want to wait to start to raise all of the money. This represents a studio unit. And you can see there's a cutout here. There is a bathroom in that studio unit with a small kitchen and a place for one person to live. And again, the idea is you would pay to live in something like this roughly the same amount that you would pay to live in an apartment in New Haven, or not an apartment, I should say, but a one bedroom in a large house. So here is what we're thinking of as phase one. So we have raised $37 million to date. That's all solid commitments. We won't be able to build, we're committing to 43 million. We think we'll raise that before we break ground. These buildings, if we get to 43 million, will be a little shorter for now, but they can be extended. And then we'll add as we can. So our timetable for construction is we're hoping to go through all of the final stages of approval. It's gone through one approval. It's in the process of going through the second approval at Yale, and the last approval will be with the Yale Corporation in June. If they approve it, we plan to break ground at the end of 22 or the beginning of 23, and hopefully the initial units here, 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 and here will be available for students in the fall of 23. So that does not represent everything that we're trying to do, but it does give you an idea of some of the major things that we have in mind. And I'm happy now to answer any questions that you might have. Please use the Q&A feature to type in your questions. So I've got one question. Let me turn to that right now. How large is the M.Div class, and what is the total student body size of the Divinity School? Great question. So we are this next year projecting that our full-time equivalents will be right at 310 students, which means we'll probably have about 340, maybe 350 total students. We typically admit half or the same number of M.Div students as MAR students. And then it becomes a question of how many elect to come. There will almost always be more M.Div students, MAR students, because you have a 3-year degree program. Theirs is a 2-year degree. So you could think of the M.Div students. We also have STM students here, and then some exchange students as well. But you can think out of, let's say, the 310, probably 15 to 20, I'm just giving you approximates, will be STM students. That's the 1-year research degree. We've had a large growth in MAR students in their interest in recent years. That's also a national trend. But you can pretty well split the difference. So think about roughly 140, 45 of each of the other two groups, or maybe a little more. As I said, M.Div, we may have more like 160 versus 140, something like that for MARs, because there's a 3rd year. But that just depends on the percentage of people who accept. But we roughly try to accept about an equal number. I hope that will give you a good idea of what the size of the class will be. I might add, please feel free to type questions in, anything that you'd like. I'll be happy to answer, or I'll pass the baton back to Hopi and you can start on financial aid a little bit early, not much, but a little. What do our students do? Roughly a third go into ministry. Now, this is not true for any one year, but overall, this is how it breaks down. About a third go into ministry. About a third go on to another degree, some to PhDs. They have a lot of students who go on to PhDs, some to medical school, some to law school, and to other professional schools. And then another third do a little bit of everything. Some work for for-profits. A lot of people work for not-for-profits. Some people go into politics. It's just a wide range. But of the M.Div students who have been with us after 5 years, in the latest survey that we did, roughly 2/3 of the M.Div students are in ministry. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea. Here are several other questions, great questions. How do you measure belonging? That's really hard. I think belonging is a subjective measure. That is, it's how we all feel. The one thing we can do in terms of structurally is to make sure that there's equity for all and that all have equal resources. And we can work to try to address some of the different differentials that existed in the past and to make up for some of that in the present. But I think ultimately it has to be that people actually feel like this is my home. Now, I will tell you this is a very ecumenical setting. We don't have ties to a single tradition. We do have a large number of Episcopalians, a large number of Roman Catholics, and a large number of some other groups, but we're not monolithic. And the result of that heterogeneity in religious identities is that there will be times when you will feel a little bit out of place. I think that's healthy. I feel that way as the dean. So I would not urge you to think that you would feel like everything was perfectly comfortable at all times. It won't be. You'll be challenged. You'll be challenged by other students. You'll be challenged by faculty. That's part of what it means to get an education. But ultimately, our goal is for all to have the sense that this place was home. I felt like I was here, and we'll have to measure that through surveys as people leave. How much will housing be available for incoming students for the incoming class? Well, right now we have 84 apartments, so it's first come, first serve. And I'll let some of the others give you details on those. But we won't have that many in the first phase of the Living Village. We'll have fewer than that. Those first 2 units that are closest will have 10 units each, that's 20. And then we'll start with another 14 units behind them. And then as we raise funds, expand those. We hope to quickly get to 62 units. So we will keep expanding. We won't pull down all 3 apartment buildings initially. So we'll have some of those apartments as well. But those are a few things we still have to work through. Thank you so much.
Greg, 1 second. I have 3 questions that was sent to me in an email. So I'm going to ask you those questions. That's why I popped on. One student asked, what, in your opinion, what is it that makes Yale truly distinctive?
I think what makes us, I'm going to say unique, is that we are a university-based divinity school. There are other university-based divinity schools, but we are a university-based divinity school that is truly ecumenical. That is, if you think of the others, they generally have a tie to a particular tradition, or they are not really as concerned about the issues of formation as much as they are about academics. So we don't apologize for academic standards. They are high and you will be challenged. But we are very serious about the formation of people as ministers or priests. And to do that in an ecumenical setting, that makes us sui generis. So I'll just leave it at that without invidious comparisons.
Okay, and I'll just ask one other question. What is YDS doing to impact the community?
Well, a number of things. So a lot of what we do is tied indirectly through Yale University and then in direct ways. So let me answer from both because people will want to know. So Yale University pays the largest voluntary tax of any university to the community in the world, I think. It's now well over $8 million per annum. I think it's actually over 10. It was upped recently to the city of New Haven. Yale also helps employees buy houses in New Haven, more than 1,100, and has recently hired well over 1,000 people from New Haven in the university. A lot of those work at the Divinity School in various settings. The Divinity School itself tries to help. So when COVID first broke out, we loaned one of our key staff people, Allison Cunningham, to the city to develop a plan for how do you care for homeless in the city of New Haven during a pandemic. Allison has a great deal of experience in this area. She ran the Columbus House here in New Haven for many years. So we paid for her salary, but she worked for the city during that time. We have relationships with a large number of churches. We pay for our students to serve as interns in those churches and to work in the local community in that way. Those are a couple of the ways that we try to be of direct assistance. We also can serve as a meeting place for some of the community. We've hosted associations of local ministers to meet here to discuss various things at times. I could go on, but that will give you at least a few ideas.
Okay. Well, Dean Sterling, and I just wanted to add to that we also have a student, Maritza Bond, who is currently the city of New Haven borrowed her from us. She's working full-time there and going to school part-time. She's the director of health in New Haven, particularly during this time. So,
and I might just add, she is on the task force, the anti-racism task force. So there are some real connections. She's very talented. Yeah. I will say thank you to all of you. I hope that I have the chance to actually shake your hand and look at you in the eye this fall in person here on the quad. It can be a very transformative experience for you. So best wishes to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Dean Sterling. Okay. Well, friends, I will now transition to inviting to the panel or to the Zoom room, John Stachniewicz, who is the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Finance and Administration here. He keeps us together. And Doreen Generoso, who many of you might have spoken to already, I'm sure, who is our Financial Aid Director. John and Doreen, would you please enter the room and The floor is yours. And as usual, friends, after their presentation, there will be time for Q&As about housing and anything else you have in mind. Thank you.
Just want to welcome you all to the Divinity School. I've been with the Divinity School for 25 years, and I've done financial aid pretty much that whole time. So I know that there was some questions submitted earlier, which I'll address. My biggest request is that April 15th is a magic date. Once we reach April 15th, it will set a series of processes in motion. The first one, which one of the questions is when will I get my net ID? There will be a series of 4 emails that you will receive within a couple of days of each other, right shortly after the 15th. I can't begin those processes until I have a good sense of how many folks have accepted our offer of admission. You'll receive 2 emails from the registrar's office. One will be a welcome, and the other will have your net ID and your student ID number. The other 2 emails will be from Student Information Technology Services. One will be instructions on how to set up your email address and activate your net ID. The second email, which this year they're doing it slightly different. In the past, they would do emails 2 days apart. Now they're doing the first email and then 2 hours later, the second email. So the housing application opens up on the 20th of April. So I'm doing everything in my power to be able to get to all those emails prior to the 20th. That's why it's important for you. The sooner you accept our offer of admission, if you're planning to do that, the better. It does take 24 to 48 hours for the system to create a net ID. So this, like I said, the sooner the better. Once this year ends, I will begin loan process. So it's also important for you to sign your financial aid letter and indicate at the bottom of it the amount, if you are borrowing, the amount you wish to borrow, so that I can get it processed and on your July 1st account statements, which will show your tuition and fees for the fall semester. That bill is due August 1st. But if I have all your financial aid that you are planning to use, then I can have it on your bill to show as an anticipated credit, so you may not have a balance due. As far as Yale Healthcare, you will automatically be billed for Yale Health. If you are able to be covered by someone else or have your own policy, you are welcome to waive that fee. Every student at Yale does have free basic coverage. What the fee is for is essentially hospitalization or major medical, if you will. You have until September 15th to waive that Yale Health fee. So it is an amount that will not cause you to be on hold if you waive it late. You do need to apply for financial aid each year, but the starting point for your scholarship for your second year is the ending point the first year. Most likely your scholarship will increase by at least the tuition increase each year. I did have Antonio send out a document which I call the next steps. There's a lot of information in there for you about requesting maybe refunds if you have a credit balance on your account to use for your living expenses, etc. I also send out another email right before the July account statement goes out with with not instructions, but explanation of what the July bill is about and what everything means. I think that's it for me for now. I guess John will handle housing, and we'll both take questions at the end if you'd like.
Thanks, Doreen. Good morning, everyone. And again, welcome and congratulations. Share some information with you about housing options. And I'd like to talk about two different areas, and that's going to be both on-campus and off-campus options. Luckily, there are offices at the university who will be able to help you with both of those, depending on whichever is your preference. The graduate housing on campus is all handled through the graduate housing office, and this includes the apartments that are on the Divinity School campus. So anything to do with those apartments, the lottery for assignments, questions about billing, the building itself, all runs through the university and through graduate housing. As Doreen mentioned, housing applications open on Tuesday, April 20th at 9 o'clock. Housing goes extremely quickly. So you really want to make certain once you get the information for your net ID, you get your account set up so that you are ready to go at 9 o'clock on that morning. There are people who have slept in and were not able to get on-campus housing. There are two different types of housing that the university has. One are apartments, and the Divinity School units are apartment units, and there are dormitories that are available for graduate students. And not surprisingly, it's the difference between a dormitory and an apartment is exactly what you would expect the difference between a dormitory and an apartment to be. The dormitories are single occupancy rooms, there are shared kitchens, there are shared bathrooms, and they run on a 10-month lease. The apartments are actual apartments, 1 bedroom up to 3 bedrooms, although we don't have any 3 bedrooms at the Divinity School. And they run on 12-month leases. They are unfurnished, and we can talk a bit about what that might mean for the Divinity School. But the Divinity apartments, as Dean Sterling showed you, there are 3 buildings. And they were built in 1957, and they are Spartan. They are not high end. If you are looking for stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, these are not the apartments for you. What they are, however, are conveniently located to the Divinity School and affordable. Rents for a 1-bedroom in New Haven itself probably start between $1,200 and $1,300 and can go up to $2,500 to $3,000. So the prices for university housing, including the Divinity apartments, are really strong. Now, someone had asked the question about renting furniture, and you will find on the housing site a link to a company called Court, where you can, in fact, rent furniture. It's $119 a month to rent furniture. So that adds up to just over $1,400 a year. There's a very large IKEA in New Haven, and you can buy a lot of furniture for $1,400. So I think most of our students here don't rent. They actually bring furniture with them, and they supplant it with pieces that they buy once they're here in New Haven. There's also an office at the university for off-campus living. And on this site, the site allows local landlords to post apartments that they have available and allows Yale students with a net ID to log in and to search for apartments. This is pretty much just a screenshot of the welcome page from the off-campus living website. There are also other options if you're looking for off-campus housing. All the local realtors handle rentals. Online, there are many websites. The biggest is probably apartments.com. You'll hear from the Dean of Students this afternoon, but the Dean of Students works to try and to put together people who are looking for roommates. And you can also talk to other students. And if this were in person, it might be easier to talk to people who were looking for roommates. But as I said, the Google Docs that the Dean of Students office runs could be a good way if you're looking for a roommate. Now, one of the questions that often comes up if you're looking to live off campus is, where in New Haven should I be living? New Haven is made up of a series of neighborhoods, all distinctive and all with many things to offer. The Divinity School is located in Prospect Hill, which is, you can see, top center. A resource that I often suggest that people go to look at if they're looking to live off campus is the New Haven Independent, which is a local newspaper. And the online presence, they tag all of the news articles and the feature articles by neighborhood. And there's actually a pull down menu where you could pull up articles and features about any of the neighborhoods. That will give you a sense, if you're not here, of exactly what's going on and what part of the city you might want to be living in. There's, if you're living off campus, a wonderful website called walkscore.com that rates the walkability of different neighborhoods across the country, and the New Haven neighborhoods are in there. And you can take a look at that, and it'll give you a sense of what public transportation options might be like in a neighborhood, what's within walking distance, restaurants, grocery stores, that sort of thing. You can get on the Google, and you can also check. There are many, many websites out there that rank neighborhoods, that describe neighborhoods, and also advise people to talk to other students, both at the Divinity School and anyone else you know who went to Yale, who might be able to give you a sense of what the different neighborhoods are like and what the different characters are like. A question that often comes up, both people living on and off campus, has to do with a car, and do you need a car? Now, the Divinity apartments each come with a parking space. Not all of Yale housing, however, does come with parking provided. There is, however, an extensive shuttle service that runs throughout the campus and a bit into the surrounding neighborhoods. It's free service. You can jump on, you can jump off, and may take you a little longer, but you can truly get anywhere around campus within the shuttle system. They also run a weekend shuttle to Trader Joe's. So if you do need to do grocery shopping, you can always do the weekend shuttle. On the website, there is a map that you can see where the shuttles run. And if you're looking off campus, you can actually overlay this with a map of New Haven just to get a sense of how close you are to a shuttle stop. As you look for listings off campus, if this is the route you're going, I have never seen a rental that's not on the shuttle system that doesn't list that it's on it, so that any landlord uses that as a selling point, that it's on the Yale shuttle system. There is both a red line and a blue line stop directly in front of the Divinity School campus. If you haven't yet, I'm going to recommend that you download the Yale mobile app. Not only does it have information on the shuttle system, public transportation, but it also provides a whole series of other really useful pieces of information for you. And then I want to give my contact and Kathy Antos, who's our Director of Operations, her contact information. So if you do have any questions about housing, and if you try the housing office and you're finding you're not getting the answers that you're looking for, or if you need more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to the two of us. And again, congratulations and welcome to Yale.
So I did see a question here from Spencer. What has kept me here for 25 years? It's just a very welcoming, comfortable place to work, and the students are great. It's just been a happy place for me, and I've enjoyed working here.
And I can tell you, we all enjoy working with Doreen. So
Thank you.
Truly makes an impact at the school. Yes, the parking space in the Divinity Apartments is included within the rent.
So regarding work study, if you received a financial aid letter, at the bottom of it, I should have listed work study if you were eligible. So when you send back your financial aid letter, you just write the amount in the accepted amount column and send it to me. If you don't have work study eligibility, it doesn't mean that you cannot work on campus. You can still work on campus. It just may take you an extra week or two to find a job. If you don't accept the work study and you do have work study, I'm probably going to put it on the system for you anyway. Mainly because if you're looking for a job, and there's a couple of places you can look. The first one is the Student Employment Office, and their website is yalestudentjobs.org, which I believe is in my Next Steps handout that Antonio sent to you. If I don't have an award on the system for you, then you'll get kicked out of applying for some jobs. So I will put it on there anyway, just in case. The other place to look for jobs is the Divinity School Jobs Board, which Jennifer Davis in the next session will probably talk a little bit about. Those are jobs that are available on the Divinity School campus and possibly some related jobs off campus. I also want to mention, which I forgot to earlier, that the 4 emails you will receive, because they're doing it a little bit differently this year, you may receive them out of order, but just know that you will get 4 emails, and you need at least 3 of them to set up on the Yale system. Do check your junk mail file, because Yale emails for some reason tend to go there. That's all I got there.
Okay, what's available housing for families? My husband and I have 2 newborn babies. First of all, congratulations on the newborns, and it's very exciting. Housing for families is available. The problem where it becomes difficult in the lottery, particularly for a Divinity School apartment, is that you would need one of the 2-bedroom apartments. And to come up with that in the lottery is going to be very difficult. What I would do, particularly in a situation like this, is as soon as you're done today here, is send an email to University Graduate Housing. And they would be able to give you the best sense overall of which of the facilities are best set up for families and what the odds are for a first-year student being able to get one of those apartments. They may be also able to direct you to one of the things that will come up in the off-campus living is Yale itself owns apartments throughout the city that are not part of university housing, but what they manage. And so they may also be able to send you in that direction as well. And you would be, if you were looking for a 2-bedroom split apartment, you would in the lottery get one, and you would be assigned a roommate for the other.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I would just want to say thank you to John and Doreen for taking some time to be with us this morning. Also, do know, they've said it before, any questions that might come up after this panel, please feel free to contact either of them. They will respond. So John and Doreen, any parting words for our admitted students?
Just welcome, and I hope to see you all here in the fall.
The same. And it'd be wonderful to meet you in person.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're about to now transition into our next panel before we take a break and get ready for chapel. As Divinity School students, as Divies is what I say, I did my M.Div here. A very important component of your program is supervised ministries. In other places, they may be called field ed. And so I would like to invite my classmate and my colleague, Jenny Davis. 2011 was a great year to come and talk a little bit about what she does over in Supervised Ministries. It's exciting work that's going on over there. So without further ado, Jenny, welcome. Thank you for coming this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be able to, have the opportunity to talk to admitted students and to, share a little bit about what we do, because what different divinity schools do varies, right? Every divinity school has its own system. So basically, I would really like to give you an idea of my team. I represent 3 people. There's myself, who directs the Supervised Ministries. We have a director of professional formation, Allison Cunningham, and the dean of vocation and formation, which is Bill Gettler. And so the 3 of us are a team, and I'm the one who's here talking on behalf of all of them. What is our job? Our job is to strive to offer real life experiences and to do our best to prepare our students for the real world coming. So how does that take shape? Well, it takes shape in a number of different ways. The first and foremost one that I know most about, obviously, is the YDS internship program. Now, Allison and I coordinate together the internships. You have a choice. You can do an internship in a church or chaplaincy setting, and that is my purview. Or, and this is a real developing aspect of our internship program, with Allison in the nonprofit and justice area. I would like to share my screen with you just because I think the best way for you to have resources is to just take a look and see what the website is like. So this is what you look at when you get to the Divinity School screen. And if you click on academics and go down to vocation and leadership, this is what the team I'm talking to you about, and that's us. So Dean Bill Gettler, Minister in Professional Leadership, and me, Director of Supervised Ministries, and Allison Cunningham, who does the professional formation, but these 2 people do the internships. Allison is the nonprofit justice coordinator, and I am the church and chaplaincy. So what I wanted you to realize by looking at the website is that you can find all of the things I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes here. So if mine is Supervised Ministries, that's the church and chaplaincy, like I said. And if you click on that bar, you get a lot of options. So I'll have a calendar of events, how you find an internship, and for supervisors, how they host one. I am also the coordinator for CPE, so that's another thing that I'll be talking about in a moment. And if you click on resources, you'll find the internship orientation that you can watch that'll tell you everything you need to know about getting an internship. But on this page as well is a list of things. And what I want you to pay attention to is just the chart of options. And if you click on this, you'll get to this page, which is what I'm going to be talking about for the next few minutes. So what you need to know before you leave this little session with me is that if you're an M.Div student, you are required to do at least one internship. If you are an MAR student, you are encouraged to do an internship, but you're not required. We're having more and more MAR students, do internships, and we love that. So, just because you're not required does not mean that you shouldn't. So basically, these are the options for internships. We have the academic part-time internship with practicum, and that is just through the months of September to May. And then we have the summer intensive, and we have CPE. CPE is not something we do here on campus. It's a transfer credit that I coordinate. So you would be doing CPE out in the community somewhere or at an accredited ACPE site. We fund the internships, these two, the academic year and the summer intensive. We now fund them $4,500. We're hoping to raise it to $5,000. Fingers crossed. And the CPE, we fund $4,000. So while you're here at YDS, you may do one funded internship with Allison or I for $4,500. And you also can be funded for one CPE unit. So under our current guidelines, the current funding system, you can get $8,500 for these internships. Okay. Again, I really recommend that you take a look at how this works. The internships are worth academic credit. So we will be getting 6 elective credits for either the full-time summer internship or the part-time academic year one. And it's also 6 credits for CPE. The weird thing is that it doesn't fall into any of the program, the area credits. It's an elective credit, right? So you need to be aware that it doesn't go into area 4 or area 1 or area 2. It's an elective. Tuition is something you need to think about for the internships. If you do it during the academic year, obviously the tuition, it is a class. It's all folded into your tuition for the year. If you do it during the summer, then there is a tuition piece for that. It is worth 6 credits, but you're only paying for 3. And I think the most someone had to pay last summer was, I think 608 or 680 maybe, which is substantially less than the actual tuition that is charged. So you get help if you have a scholarship that applies to the summer as well. So like I said, students usually don't have to pay that much, but there is a summer tuition for the intensive internships. And then CPE is a tuition that's run by the units wherever you do it. If you do CPE at Yale New Haven Hospital, for example, I think it's $800, but it is not covered by the stipend. I mean, yeah, we don't cover it extra. You are responsible for the tuition at the CPE sites. So yeah, $4,500 comes throughout the year, and then in the summer it's also paid, bi-monthly. We have amazing sites that we can offer you, and I wanted to show you. Like I said, this is offered here in the resource pages. It's called the chart of options. But if you go to here, again, I'm in my site. If you go to finding an internship, there's our little orientation video that you can watch. And at the bottom of the page, there are all the different sites for church and chaplaincy. So if you are Baptist, UCC, or UU, here are the sites we do. Episcopal, we have a list of historically Black sites for the Black Church Studies students. And then another category, which is Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Methodist, and Presbyterian. We have educationally focused sites, and then summer internship opportunities. And these are some forms that you can also fill out. So that's on the bottom of this, where did I put that? Finding an internship. And if you're interested in knowing like what it is for our nonprofit, then go to Allison's page, which is the professional formation, and click on finding an internship. And there you find our orientation again. And at the bottom of the page, you will see a list that she is still developing. And this is what it looks like. So these are all different nonprofit agencies in the New Haven area that have partnered with our students. Now you might be asking yourself, well, those look like interesting options, but I'm not very interested in those. I have this other thing I want to do. We encourage you to do that. I would say probably 50% of our students go with one of our sites, while the other 50% find something creative to do. The only thing that's important for us is that it needs to be a service internship. We have a lot of highly academic people, and some people would love to do a research project. That's not really what our internships are about. Our internships are about mission, ministry, or service. So, but if you have an agency or something that you've been dying to discover or work more with, bring it up. Talk to Allison or myself, and we'll make it work. By and large, we do have requirements for sites. They have to, be a site that's going to nourish you and give you the kind of experience you need. And so we do have requirements, but by and large, it's very popular for people to find their own. So that's kind of it for now. I just wanted to make sure that you knew, as far as internships go, that we have it all on our website here, and you can find out a lot more. And when I'm finished talking, I would love your questions. So there's no dumb question, please ask. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to make sure you knew is that we also are interested in preparing you for real life, right? So Dean Bill Gettler has a portfolio that he requires students to build. It's an online thing that you put in current papers, you kind of write reflections on, as a kind of centralized place that you can resource with future employers and mentors to help you to build a portfolio, something you can take with you and have everything in one place. So the portfolio is one piece that we do. And the other thing we do is some workshops that we foster for job preparation. So we have 3 things that are going right now, actually 4. And these are just the most recent recordings of our personal finance workshop, led capably by John Stachniewicz, who you just met, and his associate, Ben Bruce. This is Bill and his How to Build a Professional Network. And we partner with Katie Vols to do a resume workshop. So those are ways that we try to partner with students to, to just build a kind of network of things that you can take with you into the real world. So you'll have real life experience. You'll have some partnership in terms of building your professional network and building some mentors, so that when you leave YDS, you'll have something. You'll have a grounding, a foundation from which to work. And that's kind of it right now. I'm really able to take questions right now. So let's go there. So M. Kelly, do most supervised ministries during the school year last from September to May, or do they typically last for a semester? That is a great question. We only have the 2 kinds, and the academic year is the whole year. We do not offer an internship that is just a semester long. So you have to do both semesters in order to get the credit. Can you talk more about the practicum that goes along with the internship? How are students supported in making meaning of their internship experience? Excellent question. So we have a weekly practicum that meets during the school year on Thursdays, weirdly, and it's for an hour and a half, and you are paired with 6 to 10 other students, And right now, what we're doing is exploring sites together and talking about ways, to support one another, and while you're in your internship. So that's exactly what the practicum is about. During the summer, we meet online because students are all over the world or all over the country, but it's the same kind of thing. We meet once a week for 2 hours. And the goal that we're trying to do is to offer you this model for living your life as a professional. So there's the actual work, which is the internship itself, the site work. There's the supervision, which we're pairing you with a supervisor that is hopefully able to mentor you. And then there's the peer learning, and that's what the practicum is. That when you go out into the real world, we want you to build a group of friends, a group of colleagues that can support you in your ministry. And that's what the practicum is. Can you do both supervised ministry internship and an internship at a nonprofit? Well, we only fund one internship. So you basically have to choose. However, this is kind of an exciting piece that Allison has given me permission to mention. She's building a class for next year that, I think may not be open to first-year students, but at your second year, you might be able to do this, where you sit on a board, on a nonprofit board, and they call them board fellows. And for the whole year, you will be having this, and this will be another opportunity for you to experience a nonprofit that's outside of the internship program. It's non-funded, but and a little bit less work as far as like hourly thing, because you'd only be meeting like once a month with the board, right? So although you can't do both of those things at the same time, there are still opportunities to explore the nonprofit world outside of the internship program. We do have an advanced internship, and that is not funded, but you can get credit for it. And that is for either nonprofit or church and chaplaincy. We have quite a few denominations that require 2 years in a row. And so you can get credit for an advanced internship. And it's a separate class. It's usually quite small, but there's that opportunity. Unfortunately, though, we only fund the one internship and one CPE unit. Any other questions?
Jenny, I have a question.
Ask me.
Can you share a little bit about, so 2 things. Can you talk a little bit about the pros and cons in terms of doing your internship during the academic year or in the summer? I mean, I remember as a student, I had I did it, a part of it during the academic year, and it wasn't so, I had some problems. And the second question is, how early should students be thinking about their supervised ministry work?
Timeline, yes. Thank you, Hopi. Those are excellent questions. First of all, the academic year, we like to push it a little bit harder because you can be learning on the hill, so to speak, while being out in the community at an internship site. And we feel like the integration of the learning is better when that is happening at the same time. But you're right, it is a challenge. Basically, you're working 11 to 14 hours per week at a site. So that with the heavy academic or the rigor, if you will, at YDS, it can be quite a challenge. So kind of weighing in, like, I encourage students to take 3 classes or less, like while they're doing their internship, in order to manage that kind of academic workload with the internship workload. But the learning, like I said, I think it's a little more integrated, right? So it's stronger. However, the summer internships are fantastic. You can go anywhere, so you don't have to be in New Haven, which is another benefit. The downside is that a lot of church and chaplaincy sites are really kind of dormant during the summer. So finding one that's going to give you the work that you need to have that real life experience can be a challenge. However, nonprofits never sleep. So you might choose to do a nonprofit during the summer. And that is by far the vast majority of our summer internships are nonprofit. So you kind of, and financially, remember I said that the summer internship does have like a tuition that's part of it. And so that can be a disadvantage if you don't have a scholarship, and you have to kind of weigh how much that tuition is going to take away from your actual stipend and if it's worth it. So that would be the only other disadvantage of a summer internship. As far as the timeline, I would say I'm going to bug you. MAR students, Allison will reach out to you during the first semester. I reach out to every single M.Div student and say, hey, I'm Jenny Davis, and let's take a walk. Let's talk. I try to get to know your interests and to drill in that all of our internships are planned in the spring semester. So your spring semester of your first year, we plan the internships for both summer and the academic year. So not only will I be meeting with you separately in the fall, if you're an M.Div, but I will also be, and Allison for the MARs, we will be inundating you with emails saying, hey, it's time to plan your internship. Let's come to the internship orientation. And really trying to get the message out there that springtime is when you need to plan for the next year. So, if you want to do an internship your second year, then that next spring is when you'll be planning it. However, you can also do it your third year. So you could put it off a year and then plan it so that the spring of your second year would be when you plan your internship. My only thing is that I feel like the third year really should be for thinking about your next steps, and sometimes having an internship while you're taking classes, while you're trying to think beyond graduation can be a challenge. So I recommend that students try to aim for their second year when they're in the midst of the learning.
There's another question, and I will ask that in a second, but I also, because I'm an alum, I want to add that they will track you down. Bill Gettler, I hid from him 3 years trying not to do that portfolio, but they come looking for you. And in a way, I'm really glad because, you're not journeying alone here. There are people here with you along the way. So that's my little piece. There are 2 questions, Jenny. The first is, how common is it for M.Div students to do both supervised ministry and CPE?
Very common, actually. I recommend, like, on the CPE part on the website under Supervised Ministries, I have an orientation video there, and it is very, very informative about what I believe the CPE experience to be. It is rich. If you are in any kind of discernment process, CPE will tell you whether or not you need to be a minister and whether or not, service is what you need to do, or whether administration might be more your strength. I'm a huge advocate for CPE, but a lot of denominations require you to do CPE as part of the ordination process. So, because we're partnering with Berkeley and with Andover Newton, both of those require CPE and an internship. So, the lion's share of those students all do both of those options. But you know what? You have the option to do it. We fund both. So why not take advantage of your time here and really explore these other areas to see where God is calling you?
Thank you. I'll help you moderate these questions.
Oh,
so M. Kelly says, Jenny, you said that you recommend that students take 3 academic classes to balance out academic workload while working at an internship site. Mm-hmm. Would that mean that a student is no longer taking classes as a full-time student?
Not at all. The minimum that you have to take to be a full-time student, I believe, is 3 classes. And so the supervised ministry would count as the 4th class. Okay, so it is part of your academic schedule. So you'd be basically taking 4 classes, but one of them would be the internship. We have very, very ambitious students that apply to Yale, okay? And a lot of students are like, but I'm here, I've got to take these academic classes. This is my opportunity. And I often have to try to slow them down. So that's the only thing. I really encourage you to be thoughtful about which classes you take while you're in your internship. But it does not put you down below like a full-time student.
Great. From Stephanie, it's a two-part question. The first is it possible for M.Div students to do an internship in their first year?
Mhm.
And second, you mentioned that offering a nonprofit internship was a developing area for the office. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? So two parts.
Sure. So I came here 3 years ago. Okay, wait. First question. No, you cannot do an internship your first year, not the official one. Andover Newton offers a very small cadre of students they call co-op students that partner with churches for the entire 3 years of their time here. They're a kind of other animal. All right. Right now there are 3. So I'm talking a very, very small percentage. And they are doing they're basically their whole 3 years is an internship. But that is not historically how we do it. The official internship is not until your second year. And it's because YDS is a fairly rigorous academic setting. And we want students to have their academics under their belt or under their kind of understand the expectations before they jump into an internship. Okay. And the nonprofit thing is exciting because when I first came here 3 years ago, all of the internships were in Supervised Ministries. Okay. And last year we hired Allison Cunningham, who was for 20 years the CEO of the Columbus House, which is a nonprofit, homeless shelter here in New Haven, the homeless shelter here in New Haven. She brings with her so many community ties, and she knows just about everybody out here in New Haven in the nonprofit world. And we have since split the internships into 2 categories. So it's really not called Supervised Ministries anymore. It's called YDS internships. And then Supervised Ministries is the church and chaplaincy. That's what I do. But there's a whole nother wing, which is what Allison does, and that's the nonprofit and justice. And it's exciting just because Allison has brought so many new and exciting options for nonprofit. And again, I encourage you to go and look at what at the site where she lists all of the sites that she's been working with, and there are always new ones coming, which is exciting.
Great. What are the typical responsibilities? This is a good question for interns in church contexts.
Yeah, they can be more specified or broad. I would say by and large, people try to do it in a broad category, whereas during their year, they may preach 3 or 4 times. And then they may have a project that they're working on, like maybe leading a Bible study or maybe partnering with the stewardship team. It all depends on what the student works out with their supervisor. I would say it's mostly very, very broad. But there are some places that offer a more specific kind of internship experience. Like I know one in New Canaan, for example, that really focuses on preaching. But again, they're all over the map. But the hope is that by the time you finish it, you will have what you need to understand what it means to be a leader in a church, right? So you're going to be talking about the finances. You're going to be talking about the evangelism, if that's a thing. That you'll be talking about pretty much everything. That means, so when you go and be a solo pastor somewhere, there won't be many surprises. At least that's our hope.
So I just accidentally deleted a student's question, but it's back. And I think this question, I will definitely, the academic dean and the registrar will go into details about this question, but perhaps you can answer a portion of it. When will students be able to contact an advisor to start sorting out an academic plan to tackle class requirements, internships? So as I said, the academic dean and the registrar will talk more in depth about when. You're not assigned an advisor. Every student is assigned an advisor. You won't know who that advisor is until you matriculate. But perhaps, Jenny, you can speak to at what point, do they start to think about internships again?
Well, I would say that this is one reason why we hunt people down, is because sometimes when your academic advisor may be more focused on what you want in your academics rather than planning what you might be needing for your internship. So it would be, I would really recommend the student themselves to bring this up during their planning time with their advisor, saying, hey, you know what, I'd like to do an internship my second year. What do you think would be the best classes to take with this? You know, what would be the best way to do this so that I gain the most experience? When I did my internship when I was in school with Opie, I took a bioethics course downtown, and I took a language course, and I took a seminar. So I was really trying to kind of spread it out so that I wasn't going to be inundated with a lot of papers at the same time. So that was my plan. But you know, everyone needs to work with the best, you know, what your academic goals are.
Great. Well, I don't see any other questions for you, Jenny. Thank you so much
No, it's
for
my
taking
pleasure.
time to be with us. This is a very important component of the program, and I enjoyed my time doing. I did CPE. So to all of you, if you matriculate to YDS and you walk into my office, you will be doing CPE. So it's just so useful for whatever work that you have to do. You're not working with benches and tables and chairs, you're working with people, and you will get some really good resources out of that experience. So Jenny is available by email. So if you have any further questions, and I know that you will, please feel free to contact her. You can see her smiling face. She's ever ready to assist you with whatever you need. Jenny, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to meeting you all. I hope to see you in the fall.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, friends, we have come to, before you jump off though, we've come to the end of the morning panel. Thank you so much for being patient and listening in. I am now going to invite my colleague and the Assistant Director of Admissions and Recruitment to come and give you some directives. By the way, my classmate is preaching in chapel again, so you don't want to miss that. So I will turn it over to Mr. Bravo. And again, thank you so much for being here this morning.